Blackballed. What is up, everybody? My name is James D. Fiore, and this is Blackballed. Friend of the show, Caryma S'ad, has a Groundhog Day thing happening in her life, as far as I can tell. And what I mean by that is I've seen her go to events, not really stake out a political position, but just document events, and then get accused by one side or the other at said event of carrying the water for whatever diametrically opposed group they are there to face off against. And it is kind of chilling. And interestingly, when I first met Caryma on the Dean Blundell podcast, from what I recall, it's not like we butt heads, but we strenuously disagreed on something, and I kind of walked away ignorantly, thinking that, oh, she's really progressive. And more interestingly is that I feel like she is progressive. I don't like to label anybody, and I don't want to label her that either. But she is clearly a person who I think is sensible, and adheres to things that are principled. And I like that about her. And what I'd like to see is more people sort of get that understanding about her. But I also want to hear critics of hers talk directly. So we have a critic of Caryma today, and also, of course, the woman herself. Her name is Caryma S'ad. And to be honest, Danny, I don't know your last name. And I guess do you want me to call you my homie Tutaro? Is that the idea?
You can call me Danny Taro. Taro is my real name. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to have you both on because, and I'm sorry, the video is 30 minutes. I was going to clip it, but I didn't. But Caryma, and I actually don't have any assets. It's been a crazy day, guys, and it didn't load any assets. But I thought it was better that we talk anyways, because maybe that's really better than trying to describe something retroactively. Caryma, you went to Peterborough recently, and can you describe, first of all, so I don't mangle it, why you were there and what was happening in Peterborough at that time?
Sure. So this past Saturday in Peterborough, there was a drag story time at the public library, which attracted the attention of protesters, both out-of-town protesters in the form of King Nico and Crystal Peters, who are freedom adjacent people who have kind of transitioned to this as a new subject, this being protesting drag child-friendly events. There was also a local church and some political figures, also in opposition. Together, they comprised maybe 20 or so people. And then the event also attracted counter protesters. Again, some of these were out of town, recurring characters who show up to face against King Nico and gang, and others were local community members. And for the past 2 years, I've been documenting polarizing events, political events. I go out and record and document my perspective, and that's what I did in Peterborough.
Okay. And then I saw a video by yourself, Danny, and
Yeah.
I get, and then, we don't have to go over like tooth and nail about the video, but it seemed to me that you were being quite critical of what Caryma was doing there. And again, rather than retroactively try to apply a context to a video, tell me what your overall critique was and how you came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following Caryma for a long time. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm just getting used to the screen changing around. I've been following Caryma for a long time, like a lot of people, and it started off. I was a fan of your work, and I really appreciated the coverage you did here locally for Peterburgers, and you did a great job. We even covered on my stream, the event that you were denied access to, and I thought you did a great job with the convoy as well. But there seemed to be kind of like a turn, and I think it was really around the time when it became publicly known that you were the defense lawyer for one of the white supremacist convoy Diagolon founders, right? And I think is a time when not just myself, but a lot of people who were once like fans of yours started becoming maybe like a little bit skeptical of like what your motives behind being a content creator or a video taker or a journalist, or I don't know what you exactly how you define yourself, or even just like as an ally and an activist, right? So I guess that kind of has drawn out into this thing where online, when you say, hey, I don't really like that Caryma is doing this specific thing, and a lot of your supporters will pile on that person, and I've undergone it. You've got me blocked on Twitter, which is fine, and we should all be curating our own social media sites, but then it kind of comes out in these real life situations like it did at the Peterborough Public Library, where some of the organizers, some of the activists, some of the allies are potentially like, they are essentially, I think they don't trust you, right? So I woke up Monday morning to cover the event, the Peterborough Public Library and Drag Storytime on my stream. And when I search for all that stuff, if I search the hashtag Peterborough at that exact moment, a lot of the information I get is like Caryma and your posts and people talking about you. And I really just want to refocus my the narrative, because we as like content creators, right, the important things that we talk about, they shouldn't really necessarily be centering us in the story. And it feels like maybe the style of content that you're doing, you have a tendency, and correct me if I'm wrong, to center yourself. And I feel as though it kind of just takes away from the importance of the issue. And the important issue that we were there for on Saturday was to support Drag Storytime. So,
okay, Caryma, there's a lot that you said there to unpack, but go ahead, Caryma.
I mean, I think that a lot of that is just, first of all, there are inaccuracies, but I don't really get what the problem is. Danny, we are not the same. You and I are not the same. So you do your content in your way, and I do my content in my way, which provides a pretty unique perspective and lens on things, because my voice is not one that is frequently represented anywhere. So there is inherent value to the work that I do. And in addition to that, I wear many hats, and I could hear you kind of struggling to put me in a silo. And I think that that's the biggest problem my critics have, which is they don't know how to deal with what it is that I do, even though all I'm doing is presenting information for people to look at and critically assess and discuss. And I don't know why that is perceived as threatening or frightening, but I disagree adamantly that people can self-deputize to restrict access to public spaces based on what? Allegations, baseless allegations, anonymous allegations, right? Where's the due process in any of that? And my actual behavior on the ground is all documented. People accuse me sometimes of clipping footage. Yes, obviously, I don't present a live stream 24/7 of my life. I clip what I find interesting. So there is an element of editorializing to what I do. That's the case for anyone putting information out on social media. We're all putting and choosing our highlight reels or however we want to portray ourselves, our personas. But there's nothing that is inaccurate in what I say. And there's no evidence, there's no documented evidence of any of these serious allegations, even though people plot and plan in advance, apparently, how to make sure I'm recorded the entire time I'm there, how to prevent me from talking to people. So there's active sabotage, which is weird. It stifles discussion and it's unwarranted. So you've described your own trajectory and your change of heart, which occurred around the time you didn't understand my motivations for something, which is your prerogative. But again, I wear many hats and I don't know what your credentials are, but my credentials are being a lawyer. That's what I do first and foremost. And the rest of it is a hobby, but I'm committed to educating people and showing them the world as I see it. And I don't understand why that's a problem.
Danny, before you respond, I just want to throw something out there. Why does there appear to be embedded in your comments to Caryma an expectation of advocacy or to stake out a political position on these issues? You sort of did it with, you said something like, we were there to support drag story time. So I'm wondering if there's embedded in that an expectation that Caryma should be there for the same reason. And then the other thing that I wanted to ask you, because it kind of overlaps on that, is why does her being part of the legal team for Jeremy McKenzie, why does that also land in your expectation of what she should represent politically? Why is she obligated to do that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, now I got to respond to both things here. So just to say, Caryma, I'm not saying that your work is not valuable. And as I said, I once found value in your work and I hope to find value in your work again. But I think myself and a lot of people who consume your content, whether they're fans or critics, they have come to believe that the work that you do is actually doing harm, right? And that is their criticism, is that it's also harming the people who are there on the ground. And part of being an activist, right?
Wait, hold on. I just have to stop you right there.
Okay.
You need to tell me what specific examples of the harm that's been caused, because I don't accept sort of that tagline aspect where we're just supposed to accept that harm was done. Give me
I mean, I don't mean harm. I don't mean people are bleeding out on the street. I just mean it's potentially something that is potentially the social movement that is.
Now hold on. You went from harm to potentially harming the social movement. How?
Okay,
and
so
what do you mean by
again? These are other people launching these things. I don't follow this story as closely as a lot of people. I covered it on my stream, and I agree. I don't think it's potential. I think there is harm being done to the social movement that Caryma was once a champion of, because you really hopped on that. I'm on the front lines. I'm covering these white supremacists. I'm an anti-fascist. I don't know if you called yourself an anti-fascist, not to label you. That's up to you. But when you put yourself on the front lines and then you kind of switch sides, a lot of people, and this is just seems like human nature, right? Because it's oh, wow, we trusted this person and now that trust is brought into doubt, and we are questioning whether this person is a good representative of our movement. And my history, I'm not a lawyer or anything, right? But I'm a hip hop artist. I've done a lot of art as activism, and I have done a lot of activism itself, working with different activist groups, and part of being an activist is building trust with the communities that you are defending and the causes that you are trying to be the champion of. So I feel for Caryma, you have, in a way, because you built your audience a certain way, and then you've switched the kind of the type of audience that you want. You have you've made a lot of people upset in that process. And it just seems like a natural consequence of trying to do a bit of the both sides. thing. It's like you can't keep everyone happy. You can't say, hey, I'm covering white supremacists and I'm on the front lines of anti-fascism, and you can't turn around and say, and I'm also the defense lawyer of the founder of one of the most dangerous white supremacist groups in Canada, right? Without you can do that, but you can't do that without making a lot of people angry, right? That just kind of makes sense.
Caryma, I want you to answer all that really quickly, though, Danny. The whole thing about the expectation that Caryma has to be an advocate for whatever you believe in seems to be at the root of your argument. Like
no. I'm saying that Caryma, you branded yourself a certain way, and then the reason why so many people are maybe upset with you is because you underwent a bit of a rebrand that
Caryma,
all kind of began.
You had a certain perception.
Yeah,
it sounds like you had a certain perception of me and who I am, and then projected expectations onto that without knowing me, without knowing anything about me apart from what I choose to show, and then are upset where these arbitrary expectations are not met, even though I'm actually entirely consistent with the values that I have expressed as being important to myself and upholding those. So you don't have to like me. That's okay. But it doesn't really matter. I just find it very confusing that there's this sense of entitlement to control and specifically limit my speech, my expression, my ability to associate, my ability to think, my ability to do my actual job. And I find that very bizarre and authoritarian.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to really tell you about your political identity, and you're free to define that as yourself. I'm just trying to tell you that, like, it's how do you say you're an anti-fascist and anti-white supremacy one day, and you turn around and you become the defense lawyer for without making people.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Hold on, Dan,
I'm not trying to label you. I'm not trying to label you. You're free to label yourself. I'm really not. I'm just trying to explain to you. This is why people are angry.
One second.
This is why people are upset.
Danny, this is the question that I wanted to ask is the question that you just kind of answered. If you're a lawyer and your job is to practice the law, I'm not trying to speak for Caryma, but I think we are of similar mind of this, and I don't think she's comfortable talking about something so specific. But if I just may speak generally, there is no expectation, reasonable expectation, for a person who is a practicing attorney to adhere to a set of political beliefs. There are defense attorneys that have to murderers, and there are defense attorneys that have to represent people that may be political opposites or whatever. It's not really something that a lot of lawyers really place their pile of values when they decide to take on a case. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's largely an adherence to the justice system itself, which removes that type of emotional need to represent someone of the same political ilk. And I that is something that I find a lot of young people nowadays that sort of subscribe to, like, the fringe on the left seem to believe is some sort of litmus test of whether or not they're an ally. And I would strongly advise that maybe you take a look at that through a different lens, where it's not appropriate to apply some sort of motivation to a lawyer taking on a certain type of client. It happened to Marie Henein, brilliant defense attorney, represented Jian Ghomeshi, and then people accused her of carrying water for wife beaters or whatever, and it was it was ridiculous. It was a non-starter. But maybe, Caryma, you can sort of clear the air, if you even want to, about why being a lawyer it should not be subjected to political litmus tests.
Yeah, so I'll repeat that I'm not going to discuss specific retainers, and there's a very broad duty of confidentiality that applies to lawyers for good reason, and that's that. The fact is that I have a specific set of skills and expertise, and again, I'm clear about what values motivate me and what I seek to uphold, and I'm consistent in that, and that's not something I need to run by anyone for approval. I am responsible to the Law Society of Ontario and to the laws of Canada and to myself and my own moral compass. And that's the end of that story.
Does that clear
Okay,
things up a
yeah.
little, Danny?
Well, I mean, I understand, and I would never say that nobody is entitled to representation in the court of law, especially like as a leftist myself. Like, I feel as though that would be actually a terrible situation, and the state of Canada would probably crack down on us. I mean, not that they really have to, because we don't really hold that much power within this place, right? I would never say that. I think, that would be absurd. I would never want to live in that society where people are not able to seek representation in the court of law. But I think when you're trying to separate your professional life from your online life as well, right? And that is something that is a challenge. We're all kind of content creators here, right? It is a challenge to do. You don't want to really compromise what's actually like paying the bills, but you want to like follow your passions as well, right? So I think it's just it's really hard to separate Caryma, this person documenting the front lines of the convoy movement, the rise of white supremacy and the alt-right in Canada, and then being the defense lawyer for like a known white supremacist, right? I'm not saying he's not entitled to having a defense lawyer. I'm just a bit shocked, and was a bit shocked that it was you.
You know what? If I may, it's what's weird about that is that I fucking admire that. And it's not because I admire the person that she was representing, and it's weird talking about it with you here, Caryma, because I know that you can't really say much about it.
Yeah, this makes me a little bit uncomfortable because, I mean, Danny, again, what are your credentials to assess any of this, right? Like, there's people throwing all sorts of words out, the idea of a conflict of interest, like just things that do not apply. And I don't know why I'm under a microscope or should even need to address this level of scrutiny. It's disrespectful.
I mean, it's not like I'm like single-handedly putting you under the microscope. The nature
you're just
of just
parroting stuff that other people have said, which is fine. You're the one in the hot seat right now, right? So I find it
I feel like I've reached my own conclusions, but I mean, I feel like, being an online figure and wanting to like grow your online presence, like in a way, you're consenting to being put under a microscope in a way, right? Like, you could turn all your accounts on private tomorrow, but I mean, we're all here trying to like drive a little bit of engagement, are we not? And it's like, and we're under a microscope, but it's
is that
in a
what
way
drives
like
you? You're driven by engagement. Do I understand that right? You're driven by engagement, correct?
I think it's perfectly fine to be driven by engagement.
I
but
know
like
this on your YouTube.
You also have to have like a moral framework that is. It's not like I'm solely.
Hold on, Danny. Hold on. I'm just gonna go ahead, Caryma.
Yeah, you're driven by engagement. That's something that sort of came out of you organically. And I noticed on your YouTube that the video you made of me 2 days ago, right? Like, that's one of your highest viewed videos. So I understand that I drive ratings, and that's something that I have curated. And that's partly why people are interested when I include myself in my stories. And it's not necessarily what I set out to do, but I work with the footage that I get. And so if I show up somewhere and people are respectful and chill and do their own thing, I'm able to tell a particular type of story. And if that's not the story that transpires, I'm not going to pack up and go home and cry about it. It's just, I'm going to work with what I got. And that was the case in Peterborough. That's what happened in Hamilton, in Welland, in Brockville. That's what's happened throughout the convoy. There are times where I'm able to be fly on the wall, and that's my preference. And there's other times where I'm singled out and targeted and followed, and it is very much a battlefield. And so I work with what I get.
Yeah. As someone really familiar with Caryma's work, and Danny, this is not intended to feel like you're being ganged up on. It's just that I wanted to have you on because, I feel like I know Caryma and I know her intentions, and I'm talking about the way that she documents events. Because let's get off the lawyer stuff, and I don't want to make Caryma feel uncomfortable on my show. But the idea that still to me that if Caryma documents an event, there feels like there's an expectation for some reason. And Caryma, maybe after I ask Danny this question, you can tell me if it's true. If there's any truth in that you self-identified as someone who was trying to lead the anti-fascist movement, because that's a surprise. And then Danny, why is there an expectation of sort of like that the politics behind a person who's just there to document? Why? And is there sort of this idea now that she represents the polar opposite side for some reason? And what's the evidence? Because I'm still trying to figure out how she does anything that creates harm, and specific examples of any type of harm, specific ones. And I would love, before you leave the show, and we have about 10 minutes left, I'd love for you to give me an example or two, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell why anyone is at a particular event, but I mean, Caryma, like, why were you at the event on Saturday? Like, you can tell us now.
Because I follow these events. I've seen King Nico probably at least 25, maybe 30, maybe 40 rallies over the past 2 years. This is something that I do, and I do it for continuity and consistency, and I like having a record of it.
Okay, so you're there to document King Nico.
I'm there to document what's there, what's happening around King Nico. I'm not there to focus exclusively on him. I'll get police, I'll get bystanders, and I'll get counter protesters if there's counter protesters. I am there to document what is happening in this public space, which, are these battlegrounds, it seems, for people who want to be heard. No one's really listening. I don't even know that what's being said is it's a very strange time, and I find this fascinating, and I like capturing it. That's why I'm there.
Okay.
Danny,
yeah,
hold on.
and
Danny,
I mean,
wait,
the rest
Danny,
of the people who are there, I think. Wait, I barely even got a chance to respond to the first.
No, but
thing,
listen,
so I should be able to respond.
But this is my problem. Hold on a second. This is my problem. The last 3 times I've asked you a question, you sidestepped it and asked Caryma a question, which is great. But I really need an answer to this question.
I was just about to answer.
Great. Well, I'll ask it again anyways, because people might not know what it was, because that was 3 minutes ago. But I need for you to help me understand why if you're willing to accept the idea that maybe you've miscalculated not just Caryma's identity, but why there's a certain expectation, being that she's there to document and not there to wave a flag for one side or the other. I need to figure out the negative and then the example of harm. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, as Caryma, you said you're there to document, and you're there to specifically document Nico King or whatever. And there are a bunch of other people there who are there to support the Peterborough Public Library and Drag Storytime and the Drag Queen, and they're there to support and elevate and make sure that the voice of the queer community here in Peterborough is heard, right? And so there's the fascist, insane protesters, but there's also the local movement who feels the need to protect themselves from those people. And what I see you doing, Caryma, especially when you do a specific thread on our boy Colin, who was there as a defender of the event that was happening, when you specifically dedicate a lot more energy to calling out the people who are there, trying to defend the event, defend themselves from the fascist movement, it just, that is the harm that's being done, is because you're hurting the movement on the ground that is there to oppose fascism, and you're sending your supporters not to be really mean to Nico King and call out fascism, but you're actually sending your supporters to call out the people who are there locally. And I'm just not sure that you've done the necessary work to be an activist when it means like building trust on the ground with the people in Peterborough, the queer community, the anti-fascist community, all the people who are coming together to make sure that this event can be a safe thing that continues to happen in our community, free of these pretty unhinged protesters, and it feels like instead of supporting that local movement and making inroads there, you kind of just pour gasoline on the fire and you blow up both sides of the street, if, so to speak.
I think you haven't done the work to know that it's King Nico and not Nico King. So you're not really in any position to criticize me on my knowledge or lack thereof of the so-called fascists, first of all. And second of all, I'm not sure what protecting Colin was doing, because the majority of their time there was focused on following me around with a flag, interfering in peaceful conversations that I was having, telling me to go away, that I'm not welcome in the community, which you would defend and say, well, that's permissible because somehow this individual has been appointed by who, I don't know, for this arbitrary concept of community, which really, very amorphous and a vessel for power that is vested in Colin as determined by not sure who. But I will say that the actual host of the show that was happening indoors, we've corresponded. They condemn the way that I was treated outside for just showing up, not pouring gasoline, as you put it, just showing up. And it's I know, James, you don't have sort of assets lined up, but anyone who's interested can check out my pinned tweet, which is just raw, uncut footage of interactions where I'm clearly being followed. I'm being kettled by flags by strange people who I don't know, who are strangers to me. The person later who called me a Nazi to my face, Danny, you speculated that we'd had previous interactions. We hadn't. That they knew of me, but I don't know of them. So that's sort of the environment that I'm in. And in a situation where the counter protesters, outnumber, first of all, the protesters who showed up. And then second of all, the small subset who appear to be there to harass me are doing just that and taking up a disproportionate amount of my time. Naturally, my coverage will reflect that. So I don't really, I think that your concepts of harm are ill-defined, of community are ill-defined, and you have no real way of being an arbiter of who's allowed to exist in public. I don't believe that that's a direction society should head in, where vigilante.
Danny, before you respond, Danny, I have the video, so I'm going to play the video.
I've never seen it with the circle, so I don't actually know what the circle symbolizes. We're gonna look that up. Can I ask, what does the circle symbolize?
I don't understand.
We don't want to talk. We don't want to talk. Please leave us alone.
No problem.
We don't want trouble. Please leave us alone.
I'll look up the circle at a later time and update you. For people who want to be left alone, though, they do seem to be followed. Which is fine. It's a public sidewalk. And I'm just here to make fun of King Nico.
I just want to pause right there and point out a comment that I think is just hilarious. It's just delicious. She used her foam finger to point her cameraman to people she knew didn't want to talk. The egregiousness of that, Caryma. Okay, sorry. I'll go. I don't even know what that means, what the complaint is, but
I'm all decked out and ready to go.
Are you coming to the game tonight?
No, I'm sort of a poser, but I support that. I have to go to Niagara Falls. So.
Oh, that's too bad. So I'm Sport a Rainbow, and so tonight's the Pride game for
right
the
on.
Peterborough Petes. So.
Okay. Well, I was looking them up, and like I said, I called it here.
Yeah.
But bandwagon fan.
Good for you. That's good.
At
Good
least
to
I
see.
picked the right bandwagon.
Yeah, that's great. You did pick the right one.
All right. Do we have to watch the whole video?
Yes,
Oh, are they? Yeah. Don't talk to them?
No, yeah.
We're not here to cause trouble.
because this is happening in real time. These people followed me to the opposite side of the street to interfere with the conversation. we're gonna watch
So
this
that is how
if we can.
I guess smears work in action.
Sorry, say again, Caryma?
Very disconcerting because I don't know those people.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
What is this childish behavior? Those adults can't know that they want to talk to me or not.
If you've ever been to like a G20 protest or something, cops have this tactic called kettling, and you were kettled by flags.
Yeah, if I get my face on camera.
Yeah, at moments after this, when I move away once again.
Why is there a camera in my face then?
It's not because your flag is in your face. But anyway, that's fine. So these are the same people who asked to be left alone, but persist in following me.
So just to be clear, like at the beginning of the video, you were way down the street, like 30 feet. And they were like, I don't want to be on camera or whatever. And you were looking at the circle thing and you're like, okay. So you walk away from them and then they pursue you. That's all we're seeing. You're obviously not being aggressive. This is why I found your video to be so peculiar to me, Danny, because it was like we were watching a totally different thing. I'm watching something. And by the way, I don't have a dog in the fight, which is probably the reason why I see it the way it's supposed to be received, to be perfectly frank, because again, that lingering question that I don't really care if you answer anymore, because you haven't yet, about the actual example of harm and the idea that she has to be representing some sort of political value that you've assigned is patently weird. And the only way I could see Caryma's actions as being some sort of negative in this context would be if I had some very ideological expectation of the entire event and the people that attended it. That would be the only way I could perceive this as being aggressive. So I'm going to let the rest of the video play out, Danny, and you can say what you want to do.
Let's get off the road. Hand warmers. Hand warmers. Thank you.
These are strange people who I've never met before, once again, just to be clear. These are strangers.
Okay, so this is the tactic, I guess, of being surrounded and encroached by flags. This is forcibly. I noticed the way, but I'm not looking to move anywhere right now, so I'm just gonna dance. I thought that it was you, but I was like, uncomfortable.
Like, this is like, if these were Proud Boys and Caryma was, well, if Caryma was Caryma, everyone would be like, and rightfully so, like, holy crap, this is harassment. But because they represent a value that you like, they can do the exact same thing, and people are just like, well, they're just protecting their right to protest something. And it's just, I don't really understand why any of this is just or interpreted as aggressive or offensive in any way. And Danny, if you can, so everyone just watched that. I think we all just watched the same thing. What was your issue with any of her actions in there? What did she do specifically that made her deserve what happened?
All right. So people, they don't have to talk to you if they don't want to talk to you, right? And what my main issue that I brought up before was that when you're doing this type of work, when you're an activist and you don't have the trust of the community that you are supposedly advocating for, right? And the real reason that everyone was there that day was to support trans rights, to fight, to counteract the rise of white supremacy and fascism and the far right, in so much as it pertains to trans rights, and for that queer space, like, to be safe and to exist. And what I guess, these people, they clearly have, a bias against you, whether it's legitimate or not. I really can't say. And I mean, James, I don't think you're unbiased in viewing this video as well, right? Because we're coming from both two different sides.
But also, I think I'm qualified to be able to identify something as not being something without having to champion.
I think I'm qualified too. I think everyone thinks they're qualified to look at a video and take what they want from it, right? But then, so what I'm saying is, though, that these activists on the ground, there are people who feel as though they're part of this community and they feel as though you are a threat. And and sure, that's how they feel. You know, I can't control how they feel, but maybe you can, Caryma, because you are
right. But you're condoning that behavior then with your words.
Nobody
We just saw me having a very pleasant conversation with someone who I spoke to about the Pride Night hockey game, right? That's why I had a jersey on. We had a conversation, which was interrupted.
You had a conversation about you being a poser.
Yeah, a bandwagon fan, which was adequate for that person. So I don't know why you would have an issue. I'm allowed.
Are you trying
to
do this thing where we're about to wrap up? Like, you don't have to call her a poser. Like, we're not here to call people.
Oh, I thought that's what the lady. I thought that she called herself a poser.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's all fine.
What? See that? I was all protective out there.
That was a normal
has been exposed. Go ahead, Caryma.
But it was a normal conversation, and I'm not sure that you really are appreciating or putting yourself in someone's shoes, and that's maybe not easy to do on a live stream, but think about it later, how it would be to be in public. You're having a pleasant exchange with someone, and out of nowhere, a couple of strangers intervene and lie about you in front of your face. And instead of standing there and arguing and trying to turn that into a conflict, I once again move away from these people and they follow me to kettle me. That's scary behavior. That's not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And it's disingenuous to pretend otherwise.
Okay, but I mean, you put yourself in these situations. Your cameraman is there. Your cameraman is there blocking you in as well and documenting this. And then after the end of the event, you make an entire tweet thread about.
You're kind of like an avalanche talker, Danny, in that you need to stop at that first part of your sentence and not put a bunch of boulders on top of it. Let's try to do that so that we can actually have a conversation. You put yourself in what situation did she put herself in?
Well, this is what you do. You go to these events and you're there to create content, and sometimes that was the content that you created that day. And then you turn it around, you make yourself the victim on social media, and then your followers love that and they get riled up by that. And it's
you just saw that video, right? You just watched the video that we watched.
For you to be
correct,
in certain
Danny?
situations.
You just watched the video that we watched, right?
We all just watched the same video. That is correct.
Right. Okay.
And then
so if you could pick someone in that video that was being even slightly victimized by anybody, who would it be?
It's a video. It doesn't exist in the vacuum of time. There was time before the video, and there was time after the video. And I am maybe starting a cult in the future in this wonderful video game we're playing.
It's hard to have a good faith conversation when we can't agree on objective reality. Because if you could tell me to my face, you know what, that was kind of messed up because you moved away from them twice, but you're not able to do that, and I don't know why, but that's not really my problem.
People have. Okay, it's not your problem. Well, it is your problem, is it not? If you're
because I have a bunch of people piling on, it's a problem. But I don't care about any of you.
Do you want to build trust? Do you want to decompress all of this?
With who?
With the people who are blocking you, I think. Well, there is no authority. It's activism. The goal is to not have an authority. The goal is to have a decentralized anti-fascist force that is going to be able to stop these things from happening. It's not a centralized thing, but there are a lot of people in the community that you are not necessarily, a part of, but you definitely engage with them, right? Who think that you have dubious motives. So I'm here. I genuinely believe that I'm here engaging in good faith. And it's kind of like a 2 versus 1 even right now, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit of sandbagged, to be honest.
You're just taking John Thiebaud's comments from the comment section. Come on, man. No one's sandbagging you. You're just wrong.
Well, Danny, I've been trying to get.
Okay, it's a 2 versus 1. I can't help but feel.
You're just
Danny,
wrong.
I've been trying to get.
But then I guess what are you doing to build trust?
Hold on,
are you
Danny,
capable
relax.
of saying, "Hey, maybe I was wrong,
Danny, hold on.
and I shouldn't always engage in this behavior"?
I need you to understand. I need you to understand something. I just watched the video. This is. I'm just going to stay on message. Here's my message. I just watched the same video that you watched, and and you said she put herself in a situation. embedded in what you're talking about is a strange narcissism that sort of implies that the people that were there with the flags own that spot. That's theirs. And if you don't go there where they are, with the same intent, motivations, and politics as they have, then you're somehow doing something wrong by being there in the first place and walking and talking. And you have not satisfied me by giving me an answer as to why walking and talking makes someone deserve being kettled by people who are supposed to be, according to you, the good guys. Why is this happening to a brown woman in Canada by people who apparently are representing anti-fascists? That is fascist behavior. That is what they do. That is what police forces do. They kettle people. What did she do other than not share your politics that was so egregious?
Maybe because I haven't talked about my politics.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, then what are your politics?
Well, then if you have to ask that question, don't you feel a little bit of remorse for making it seem like she did something wrong?
I mean, well, that is the main criticism I think that you face from a lot of people who were following you from the beginning of your social media presence. And, you know, you appear to be on the front lines covering these white supremacist people, Peterburgers. And now in one of the videos that I saw, you're comparing the people who were there defending trans rights. You're comparing those people to the people who were Peterburgers. So it's just, you did. You said that they were singing the na 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 goodbye, and you said that's the Peterburgers theme song.
Yes, because when Peterburgers shut down, I stood outside their restaurant and played that song. So I've made that their theme song. So that's not comparing them to Peterburgers. That's a callback to my other content. Is that okay?
My bad. I didn't know that.
Do as a content creator?
Yeah, of course that's okay for you to do. Okay. I thought there was a comparison there, but I mean, James also just made a comparison. Okay. Yeah, it's okay to be mistaken and publicly admit that you were mistaken. It is true. And I mean, part of the harm being done, though, is after the event, you know, we're talking about this video that we all just watched like, as if it was like a moment in time and there was no time before it and no time after it. But we don't see what happened leading up to the event. And this is also just like a long thing in the making. Like, Caryma, you go to these things all the time. And after the event's over, you get all your social media followers to dogpile onto one of the activists there.
I don't think that that's accurate. I think I named someone who was running around naming me in real time and prior to this event and has been sort of on my case for quite some time. And I ignore it because I don't really get into the fray with individuals unless it's persistent. And then it persisted to real life harm, which is an actual harm to me, not a hypothetical harm born out of paranoia of my activities, which may be nefarious, but we're not really sure. And just for the record, there is discourse about, you know, planning to surveil me at protests, and here's how we're going to handle it and make sure there's a camera on her at all times. So I feel confident in saying that if there was any evidence to the contrary of what I put out there, it would be displayed and broadcast. And instead, what we get is video footage that is described as something other than what it actually shows. And that's the proof and evidence against me. So I don't find it to be a compelling case. And no one can tell me that I go and antagonize. I heard the same stuff from the freedom people. They just don't like that I'm there capturing what they're up to. And in this case, what a small subset of people wanted to be up to was policing the area.
Okay, so again, you are comparing the Freedom Convoy to the trans defenders, like as you just did, right?
No, but hold on. Not to the trans defenders.
There is a way to compare behaviors without comparing moral souls, right? Like if the behavior is the same, that it's the same thing with I compared them to a police force at the G20 rally that I was at in Toronto in 2010. Because kettling is a thing. And whether you use like your billy clubs and plexiglass or flags to trap somebody between you and two other units or three other units is kettling. So, you know, it's just behaviors, man. Like it's not saying that you share the same moral code, but there is, the ends doesn't necessarily justify the means for either side. And so when it comes to certain things like blocking traffic or kettling or Molotov cocktails or whatever the fuck, should be a semblance of consistency of expectation of morals between one side and the other. And if one side doesn't have them, the other side doesn't have a green light to then do that as well. And I find it very strange still that video would cause anyone, after watching it, like if no one knew the politics of anybody there and just watched the video, I don't think anyone in the right mind would be like, well, that girl was very aggressive the way that she went along her way and tried not to talk to the people that didn't want to be talked to, who then stalked her and then kettled her with their flags. Like, no one would ever paint that person as the person in the wrong. Danny, I have to let you go. But it was, listen, we can do this again,
okay,
if you want to. Like, I'm sorry if you felt sandbagged. I think part of the reason is maybe that our audio made it so that there's a delay a bit, and so I felt like we were talking over each other. But I apologize for that. But we'll try to have you
no
back.
worries.
Okay.
I honestly had a great time, and thanks for having me on. I really think that these conversations are important, and I did feel a little bit sandbagged. Maybe next time we could make it like a 2v2 match or something. Make it all professional wrestling.
Maybe you could just answer the questions next time, Danny. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, I did my
buddy.
best. All right, we're all doing our best. So, all right, take it easy.
It's all
Thanks
good.
again.
All right, thanks, Danny. Hey, Caryma. That was the first. I've never done that on Blackballed. I had someone in that it turned into a little bit of a thing. But I said this when he was here. It is very strange to me that your video was perceived in any way other than someone doing something that was not very positive towards you. And I know you don't like me. Like, you're not a victim, obviously. Like, you're tough. You're a tough person, and I don't think that you're going to lose sleep necessarily over the flags being put around you. But it must be annoying, and it's weird seeing it in real time. And I'm looking at the chats, and it's almost like you can tell the difference between the people that were there in talking about you, whether or not it was from a positive or negative perspective. There's a lot of negative in the chats right now about you, which is surprising. It's probably traffic brought over by Danny, but is it as surreal to you as it is to me, that we can watch objective reality be deciphered in a totally different way?
We're in weird times, man. That's just what it is. It's weird times, but I am nonetheless committed to being objective and staying accurate, so others can choose to not value those ideals, and that's their prerogative. But I think the only way out of this mess is to be measured and truthful.
Well, Caryma, I am not neutral when it comes to you. I support your work. I don't always agree with you politically, but I think that your principles I strongly agree with, and your ethics and your brain, and the fact that I'm going to eventually get you a cape that you'll probably just hang on the wall and never wear because, as that person said in The Incredibles,
Listen, I wear
no
costumes. So.
I didn't know you called yourself a poser. Here I am, like, what the fuck did you say, Danny? What'd you fucking say about my girl?
Hey, listen, I'll fess up when I don't care about sports. I think sports are stupid, but if I'm gonna pick a hockey team, I'm now Team Pete's, and I will be consistent about that. So
yes.
Go Pete's.
Sports are stupid, says the avid professional wrestling fan. You know I love you. Caryma S'ad, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. Bye. Well, that was fun, everybody. Thanks for all the people in the comments who were calling me names. I appreciate that. I actually like seeing that. It's so tiring seeing everybody sing my praises all the time. Call me Madflower and think I don't like that nickname, when I really secretly, well, no, I don't really know. It's growing on me a little bit. But yeah, objective reality. Caryma said it best. Listen, I don't really have much to add to that because I thought that I other than the talking over each other. To be honest, that was like me. You know how like you walk down the street. Remember the Verb video for Bittersweet Symphony, and he was just alpha mailing everybody as he was walking down the street singing, "It's a bittersweet. Take that, Dad. I'm gonna shoulder you too, lady." Sometimes when you're on a podcast and you wanna, and you're the host especially, and you wanna interject, and that other person doesn't back down, your instinct, once you get past like 2 seconds of talking, is to not back down, to put that guy right in his place. And to Danny's credit, but not to the content not to the benefit of the content. Fucker didn't back down. So I talked over him for seconds at a time because I also am not a back downer guy. So big shout outs to the people in the comments who are my critics. I love you too. It's all good. Hopefully you'll come back and watch if you like the guests that I'm having, if not for me. So that's fine. Tomorrow's Casual Friday. We have Nate from The Breakdown, the Alberta show. Little known story. Even though I knew David Wallace like 4 years ago, it was actually Nate's show that David Wallace was on that sort of prompted me to book him for the first time last year on the Dean Blundell show. That sort of led to everything, including the long delayed, but nonetheless still up. And I will be co-hosting, featuring a lot of amazing stuff. And it's going to happen, just taking a little bit longer than we thought, but that's actually a good thing. I was supposed to start Blackballed about 8 months before I actually started it. And Dean was like, when are you starting your podcast? And I'm like, I'm not ready yet. And then I got Noam Chomsky. And then I have an announcement, everybody. Noam Chomsky is coming back to the podcast. And he is going to be here on April 22nd, which is Earth Day. And we are going to have a 2-hour discussion exclusively about the environment. I'm really excited about that show. That was confirmed a couple days ago. I'm going to do some pretty big things surrounding that show and in the lead up to that show. I don't really know what they are yet because the booking is so new, but clearly when you're interviewing Noam Chomsky on Earth Day and he only wants to speak about the environment, which he knows, by the way, a ton about. His last book was a co-write. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember the name of it. But it was part of our interview last time, where he's 93, I think, almost 94, something like that. And he, it's the only thing he wants to talk about. He told me recently when we were talking. I'm sorry, it feels weird to say I was talking to Noam Chomsky still, but we're not pals. I think we have a professional acquaintanceship or whatever. By this point, this will be my third interview with him, but he didn't want to talk politics. He's tired of it, and he said that the environment is the only issue that he's really thinking about, because he knows that his time left is limited. I thought it was a really revealing thing for him to say. So when he said that, I Googled, when is Earth Day? And it said April 22nd, so I just randomly said, how about we do Earth Day, April 22nd, and we only talk about the environment. And he's like, okay, done. So that's happening on April 22nd. So, I'm really excited about this one. It will certainly be the last time that I interview him. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends how it goes. He's so up there. I joked the last time that I had him on during the intro that or maybe it was the first time, that he has probably written more books than I've read. And I meant that. I'm not much of a reader as far as books go. Anyways, so that'll be fun. Tomorrow's Casual Friday again with Nate and with Ryan Lindley. I'm going to see if Brent can join us from the Middle East. That'll be fun. And I've invited a couple other people. There'll be some surprises. And Ryan will put me in my place regarding how we handle the guests that we have, the sort of unscheduled guests that we have. I don't know, being put in a box in my own show. I put myself in that box. Sometimes I need a box. We'll see you next time on Blackballed.
Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed. Blackballed.